Hello, this is wmpyr. This is part 2 to my last video, which was a video response to the best EDC knife for self-defense. And okay, so even though I disagreed with the original points made by the person who made the video, if you had listened to that person's advice, right? I said that you probably would have ended up with something similar to this knife right here, the CRKT M1613 SFG. So if you had listened to them and you went with what they said, it would be not exactly this knife, but something similar to this knife. Is that a bad choice? No, I don't think so. So if you got something like this, I think that's perfectly fine, you know. So what I do want to say is that from martial arts, training in martial arts for so long, one of the main things that I learned, and not all martial artists share this view, but anytime you hear the word best, red flag goes up. So the best style, the best technique, bing, the red flag goes up, and I know there's something wrong. Why? Because from my experience, from my training, I've come to discover that the best simply doesn't exist. Now, some people may say, okay, you know, but what I'm talking about when I say is the best, I mean the best for me. I'm not saying the best for everyone. I'm saying this is what works best for me. And I don't agree with that either, because from my personal viewpoint and experience, when I've looked back at the things that I thought was the best, when I really truthfully look at those things, it wasn't the best. It was the most convenient. And I liked it. It had personal opinions there. I felt comfortable with it. You know, the teacher in the school was right there. So it was a matter of convenience. If I'm really going to say something is the best, you'd have to be scientific. You'd have to probably study like every martial arts style there is ever recorded or come close to it at least, and you know, be able to put down data on all of that and then compare with numbers, you know. And even then, that's unrealistic, because the truth is the martial arts style, like let's say Muay Thai kickboxing, right? You go to one school and it may be a great, fabulous experience. You go to another school and they might just treat you like a sandbag and beat you up. So even though it's the same style, it could be very different depending on the school and the instructor and the students and even the location. So and to take those factors out is unrealistic, because that matters, you know. The other thing is you yourself change. You change over the years. So in your early 20s, Muay Thai kickboxing could have been great, but then later in your 40s, it may not be a good idea at all. So you got to take all that into consideration too. And once you do that, then the best, it just seems like a fool's quest. You get a professional tennis player and you give him a $200 racket, or you give him, you know, a tennis racket from like Walmart that was on clearance. Maybe it's like 20 bucks, right? They're still going to play awesome. So that should tell you right there that the tool, like the tennis racket in this case, or in our case it would be the EDC self-defense knife, is the least important thing. That the person's abilities and skill is way more important. Way, way, way more important. So I focus on that. If you had the best knife in a self-defense situation, or you had your second best knife or your third best knife, does it really matter? And at that point, no, it doesn't. Now the other thing is, let's say for me, something like this is, let's say I found this to be the best. Let's just say, I'm not saying it is, but this is the Smith & Wesson Urban Camo Karambit, which I've used in a lot of my videos. This is very, very specialized, right? Highly specialized knife. So it's a karambit, you know. So if I had something like this, and this is what I became comfortable with, and this is what I wanted, this is what I trusted in a real life situation, all right, then, you know, I'm pretty much going to have to carry this with me at all times, just to make sure that I am going to have it with me in a real life situation, right? That's what I'm going to have to do. Whether I travel, I'm going to have to figure out a way to somehow have this with me. And you know, when I'm going into a building that has metal detectors, and which happened to me last year, where I had to go downtown to the Consulate General. But like I said, if this is your number one most comfortable self-defense EDC tool, then you're going to have to figure out a way to have this. And I'd rather be able to adapt to the environment. And Escrima is very, very good at that, and Escrima teaches you that. So I would be able to use, something like this with skill. Not just grab it and then use it like a caveman, but use those things, whatever it is that's available to you, with skill, with the techniques that you have practiced, with the strategies, and all that you do on a daily basis. That's the art of Escrima, the art of improvised weaponry. So that's like the 180 degrees opposite route from something like this, where yes, I study this, but I don't depend on always having it with me. It just makes life easier to be able to adapt, and I think that's going to be a more realistic and much more doable option, I believe, to be able to adapt to your environment. So if I understand, because if you have a flea market knife, this is a low quality knife for sure, right? Compared to your favorite knife that is $100 or maybe even more than that. Okay, obviously you're gonna perform better with that, right? But at the same time, every drug dealer, thug that I've seen their knife, they were not carrying a CRKT, a Spyderco, a Benchmade. They were carrying this no-name brand flea market knife. Okay, that's what I saw. So you want to know what the bad guys are going to be using against you. You definitely want to be familiar with that. And also, that's probably going to be more common and easier to acquire around you. And if that's the case, I'd rather know how to use that to be able to fight with a specialized weapon. I think is important. Like I said, something like a karambit, tomahawk, so a specialized weapon. And then to be able to fight with a quality knife. This is something that's maybe from 50 above, maybe to the $100 range, and then for some of you guys, you go higher than that, which I don't really see a point in that, but 50 to, let's say, 100, let's say around that range. And then you have knives that are decent quality, so it's 50 and below, to maybe like around $30 range, all right? And then, of course, you have the flea market knives, right? The really, really cheap knives. So I think you should be able to use each one of those categories, knives from each one of those categories, in order to be well-rounded, in order to be able to adapt. So that's my personal perspective. And if you know the pros and cons, what to expect, what are the limitations, of each one, then I think that skill is more valuable than being able to pick out the best EDC knife for self-defense, which to me means that you're an excellent shopper. And I've always said it. You look at some of my videos from years ago, I've been preaching, and I'm sorry it's preaching, but I've been preaching to you guys, don't become a knife collector, become a knife user. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you for listening, and take care, folks.